Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Coder. I'm Chris, and this week we are continuing our Frogger game. First things first, though, I actually discovered some things. So I was doing some research so that we could start working on these Lilly Pads because I wanted to kind of find out what the significance was of the blue versus the red Lilly Pads, and I actually was able to dig up the original manual for Frogger that was made back on the Atari and found out some pretty interesting things that will make our game design actually a little more true to the original. And that's going to start with the actual Lilly Pads, which actually aren't Lilly Pads at all. They are actually turtles. And if you think of it in some weird way, it actually makes sense. So we've got the red turtles and the blue turtles. The red turtles are actual just turtles floating on the water. You can jump on them. They're fine. They're always safe. The blue turtles, the reason that they're blue, okay, now here's this going to blow your brain. They're blue because they're currently sort of under the water surface, so you can kind of sit on them, but they're about to dive. So they're diving turtles. So they're just slightly under the water and they're about to dive, okay? Or they're about to come up for air. So what's going to happen is either they disappear because they dove, or they turn to brown because they're now above the water. So that actually makes so much more sense than having random lily pads that just disappear for no damn reason. Because why would a lily pad just disappear? If a turtle dives, that's more believable than a lily pad just disappearing, right? So that makes so much more sense. So I'm actually kind of proud of myself for discovering those things. So now what we can do is I've prepared some graphics, and these will be available for you as a download and assets on my blog. And for the people on Patreon, you guys can also grab those. So I'm going to go ahead and drag those into our graphics folder. And what I've done is I've prepared 4 individual graphics files. And they are Turtles Blue 3 and 2, and Turtles Brown 3 and 2. And I know that's contradictory to what I said earlier, them being lily pads and red and blue, but they're brown and blue. Whatever, it doesn't matter. That's what I named them. The naming scheme just doesn't really even matter, as long as we know what they are and what they're used for. So we're going to set the pixels per unit for all of these at not 16,100, but 16. And we're going to change the filter mode to point. And we're going to click apply. Alright. So, before we continue on, I'd like to remind everybody to please check out my Patreon. Everyone who pledges on Patreon for the Weekly Coder actually is going to get exclusive access to source code, to all of the projects, not just the ones going forward, but also all the projects that I've previously done. So like Tetris and Pac-Man and what else did I do? I know there's more than Tetris and Pac-Man. There's 2048, there's Pong, there's Mario. So yeah, all of those will be available as well. And don't forget to check out my wife's YouTube channel where she plays games. It's called Donovus Maximus. And finally, don't forget to check out Code Scruffs because, it's not all serious coding all the time. Sometimes you got to have a little more fun. On Code Scruffs, we're working on a new series right now, which we're going to start putting out. We're going to start putting up our new series soon because we're almost done with the Frogger series on Code Scruffs. So that will be actually a nice one for you guys to check out. Lots of cool stuff coming your way. So, all that said, go ahead and like this episode because you know you do. And if you don't, just don't. But you can't say no yet because you haven't seen it. So once you see it, you can decide that. But you know you're going to like it regardless. So just click the like button. Anyways, that's that. And let's go ahead and get started with the episode. We have all of our graphics now in here. And where do we go from here? I say we create script. And we create a C# script. And we're going to call this turtle. So let's open that guy up. Perfect. Oh, something else I wanted to mention too, and I don't know if we're going to get into this or not, but apparently on the Atari you could set a difficulty on the game by using the selector switch to put it in the A or B position. And depending on where that switch was, Frogger was allowed to float off the screen along with the logs or the turtles. If you switched it to difficulty setting A, then if you as Frogger were on a log and it was about to go off the screen, you were not going to float off the screen with that log. You're just going to die. So that makes the difficulty like quite more difficult. It makes the game harder. Yes, that's what I was trying to say. So, keep that in mind for if you want to implement that. It shouldn't be too difficult. Just a Boolean. Hey, going off the screen? Nope, you're not. Or yes, you can. It's basically all it is. So, first thing we're going to want to do, since we have two types of turtles, is I think we're going to make a type that we can select in the inspector. So we're going to make a public, enum. We'll call this turtle type. And then we'll have a turtle type floating. And a turtle type diving. And then we are going to create a variable for that type. So public, turtle type, and we'll just make this turtle type. And autocomplete, work with me. Turtle type. Public turtle type equals turtle type dot floating will be the default. Okay. So for the rest of this, I think let's do one more thing. We're going to create public. Do we really need to? Yes, we do. Public sprite turtle dive sprite and public sprite turtle float sprite. Okay. And that is because what needs to happen. Okay, so if it's a floating turtle always, then we never have to worry about whether or not we need to change the sprite of the turtle. But if it's a diving turtle, then that turtle needs to be able to go from a dive sprite, okay, which is blue, to no sprite, to dive sprite, to float sprite. So it needs to know what those sprites are. So that's why we're going to put those there. And alright, so we're going to have a move speed. Not bool, float move speed. And we're just going to set that equal to 5.0f for right now. And then I'm going to reference the log script and just kind of copy pretty much all of this. And, you know, programming is about efficiency, so not rewriting this is actually, more efficient, I say. So all the way to here, and we're also going to delete the start method because we just don't need it. All right, so we'll have our move right, obviously, because we also need to know whether or not we're moving right. Okay, and then I'm just gonna go touch on this part of the script really quick. There's so many spaces everywhere. It's like I was trying to make this thing easy to read or something. Alright, that looks much better. Alright, so we're saying, hey, if we're moving right, we want to increment the, first of all, let me start by saying this. We've got our position, and that's a variable that we created, and we're getting the local position of the transform, which in this case is the turtle. Okay, we're going to say, hey, where's your position right now, turtle? And then we're going to say, okay, well, your position right now is going to be stored in this variable. And then we say, hey, are we going to move right? And if we are, then we're going to grab the x property of that position vector. We're going to increment, right? This plus equals means increment. We're going to increment it by the move speed, which is defined up here, which also can be defined in the inspector. We're going to times that times time.delta time. Okay. What's going to happen then is we're going to check to see if that position is outside of the area, right, that we need it to be in order to loop. Remember, because these have to loop around the screen. So they're floating off the right and coming in on the left, or floating off on the left and coming in on the right. We then set its x position to the position that it should be in as a starting position to come back in on the other side of the screen. And then, of course, we do the same thing for the left side if it's moving left. And then finally, we take and say, hey, Mr. Frog, we're going to update your position with this position variable that we've now adjusted based on all of these variables. Simple? I think so. All right. So now that I have it looking the way I want, we can create some prefabs, right? Because this is also going to collidable object, safe. Oh, right. Okay, so there's some other things that we need to do, of course, to the script, but for now, we can go ahead and create our prefabs. So let's take our graphics, and we're going to have to create 4 prefabs. It's just the way it is. So we'll just go ahead and drag all 4 of these. Nope, because that's going to create an animation. So we'll just do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So turtle's brown. What am I moving? Oh, okay. So I guess the first thing we should do is set their order and layer. What do we have for the logs? The logs are 5. Okay. So we'll set all of these to have 5. Alright. Now if we drag it over here, perfect. Okay. So the rules in the manual actually state that the frog is going to be safe at any point on and in between the turtles. So even if the frog is right here, which is clearly on the water, he's still safe because somehow that's what the rules say. And that's cool, because we like that. Alright, so basically they're going to behave just like logs in that they are going to be safe for the frog to be on, as long as they are either in diving mode or floating mode. Now, if they are not in either of those modes, then they are not on the screen, which means that the actual diving turtles are now under the water, and they're no longer there to support the frog, which means the frog is in the water, which means the frog's dead. Okay. So let's go ahead and select all of these again. We're going to add the collidable object component, and we're going to mark it as is safe. And let's go ahead and grab the turtle component. All right, and for the turtles brown 3, it's going to be turtle type floating. We don't care about the sprites. We'll leave the move speed, and for this one we'll leave it going right. Actually, they should follow. You know, these things we're going to adjust after we create the prefabs, which is fine. This turtle's brown 2. This is also type floating, and also safe. Turtles type 3. These are not. These are diving turtles. Also diving. Alright. And then we need one more thing. We're just going to create a Boolean collidable object and say that it's a turtle. Is the log. Alright, so these also need to have the collidable object tag. Alright. And turtle type. That's fine. Let's go into our collidable object script. Create a Boolean. Public bool is turtle. Alright, so now we can go back to the turtles and select them all and then specify that they are indeed turtles. Alright, so now that we have them, actually we also need to, for these, turtles blue 3, we need to go into graphics, and turtles blue 3, we need to grab that sprite, and that'll be the diving sprite. And turtles brown 3 will be the float sprite. And then the same thing for turtles blue 2. We'll have turtles blue 2 as the float, as the dive sprite, and turtles brown 2 as the floating sprite. These don't need any sprites because they're never going to be diving, and everything else looks good. Alright, so let's create prefabs. We've got turtles brown 3, turtles brown 2, turtles blue 3, and turtles blue 2. Alright. Okay, so let me have a look at just the first level of the Frogger game. So, if we look at this, it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we've got this one is these are diving turtles. See how they're going to disappear now. Alright, so now keep an eye on these because they're going to end up coming back just like they did, and then they're going to turn into floating turtles, and then they're going to turn back into diving turtles, and then they're going to disappear. There they go, they're gone. Now they're going to come back as diving turtles, and then they're going to be floating turtles, and then they're going to be diving turtles. Alright, so it looks like we've got just these two on the first part. Okay. So we've got, let's go ahead and make this bigger. There. Alright, so let's move these guys up to Y position 2. And let's move these guys to Y position 3. And let's move these guys up to y position 5. Alright, so now we'll grab this one and put it over here at y position 1 and -6. Sounds about right. And then we'll put this one at 1 and 0. Perfect. So then we'll need to duplicate this and put it over here. Alright, so we've determined that the distance between is going to be always 18. So what we've got here is -6. And in order to be 18, we need this to be at 12. Alright, and this one is at 0. That means its counterpart actually needs to be at 18. So we duplicate, and we move it to 18. Alright. So, for now, let's get these other ones off the screen here. And like that. Alright. So, and these are also all going to be moving left. So we're going to uncheck move right. Let's see if this actually works the way we hope it was. Alright, well, they loop exactly how we hoped they would, which is good. Alright, but are they really that close together? Nope, they have about 3 spaces in between. So, let's make this 3 in the x. Yep, that looks good. And let's add, I don't know, that might be a little too far. 2? Yeah, let's do 2. And then we need to add 2 to this, which will put it at 20, actually. Alright, let's check that out. Alright, going a little fast for my tastes, so let's change the speed. Let's go with like 3. Okay, that looks pretty good. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to check into the player script and see if we're using that log variable for anything in our collisions, and we are. So let's see here. If collidable object is safe, then is safe equals true. If collidable object dot is log, then okay, so what we'll do here is we'll just say if collidable object is log or collidable object dot is turtle. So if it's a log or a turtle, then yeah, not gonna happen this way. Alright, so if collidable object is log, else if, oops, collidable object dot is turtle, then we basically do the same thing here. We're going to go through and we're going to say if collidable object dot get component turtle dot move right. We know we're moving right. Then we say position dot position dot x. Shit. Fine, I understand. Vector 2 position equals transform local position. The reason that we're doing this in the if statement is because if we're not in the if statement, then we don't need to know what the local position is. So position.x plus equals collidable object and get component turtle move speed times time dot delta time. And remember, this is for making the frog move along with the object that he's on. So if he's on a log, it makes him move quickly or as fast as the log is moving. We're ready to continue. If transform dot local position dot x is greater than 9.5, then we say position dot x equals transform dot local position dot x minus 18, just like the log. All right, so now we need to create this else. And we're going to just say position.x, and that's because now we're going left instead of right. Collidable object.getComponent turtle.moveSpeed times time.delta time. And some of you may or may not be thinking, hey man, you could probably just save yourself some time if you, instead of creating a log and a turtle, you just create a safe object script and then basically define a type for whether it's a log or a turtle, if you even need to know that. And then that way you don't have to write these if statements twice, because you just get the safe object component instead of either the log or the turtle, which is all true. You can do it. You can totally do that. Does it matter at this point? No, it does not, because we're making Frogger. If we were making a game that had billions of freaking things on the screen and things on the screen, that's such a proper way to say that. If we were making a game that had millions and billions of prefabs, I don't even know if Unity can handle millions and billions of prefabs. Anyway, if we were making a game such as that, then we might want to worry about optimization more. But in this case, this is just an extra if statement. We're just writing an extra little bit of code, which is fine. Besides, if nothing else, this is basically, a lot of people learn through repetition. So this is actually really, really good for learning just, the basic kind of, hey, this is what we got to do to make this happen. Whoa. I didn't write an F and it didn't complain. Learn something new every day. So local position.x plus 18f. And just for the sake of consistency, F, F, F. There. Everywhere's an F. Okay. So now, with this in mind, we should be able to play. We should be able to sit on these turtles. I almost called them Lilly Pads. Old habits die hard, man. Alright. Whoa, that's fast. Why is he not moving? Well, that's bullshit. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. What the hell? Player. Let's take the else out of here and just make it its own if statement. This should work. It does not work. Works for the log. Does not work for the turtles. Why? Why? Alright. Now we get to debug. It all has to be in here. That literally is all it can be. Alright, so first off, this checks if it's a log, which it clearly is not. This checks if it's a turtle. Turtle is clearly in the else statement here. Why? Oh shit. I forgot the most basic component of all. Transform dot local position equals position. Because we have to assign this position back to local position. That's stupid. Alright, now it should work. There. And we travel along with the lily pad, or the turtles. I call them lily pads. Alright. So, now that we have that, we can go back into our turtle script here, and we can do some cool stuff. Let's create a method. And let's call it turtle. Oh man. All right. You know what? Let's do this another way. Let's create some variables. Create private ones, and we'll call them should dive equals false. Private bool, no less. Should dive. Come on, man. Should dive equals false. Should surface equals false. Did dive equals false. Did surface equals false. Private bool, private float. Surface time. Private float dive time, private float surface timer, private float dive timer. Oh man, this is getting maybe. This is all like a test for me because I haven't. This is the first time I'm doing this. I mean, I've done this type of work before, but this is the first time I'm doing this for this game. So bear with me. I may change this up a little bit still. Okay, so what we want to do is let's put this in another method. Actually, let's create a couple methods. Let's create a void move turtle. You know what? Let's be more precise than this. Update turtle position. and we'll create one called update dive turtle status. Alright, so we'll take everything in the update method that's here now. I'm going to cut it, so Command X or Control X, depending on if you're on Windows or Mac, and let's paste it, Control V or Command V, into update turtle position. Alright, so then in the update method we're going to call update turtle position, and we're going to call update turtle status, or dive turtle status. So the first thing that we're going to do in our update dive turtle status method is we're going to check to see if it's actually a dive turtle. So if turtle type equals turtle type dot turtle type diving, and we're frozen up again. This is getting old. Alright, turtle type diving. If that's true, then we want to do stuff. So, let's say that the surface time is equal to 5 seconds. And the dive time is equal to 5 seconds. So if let's change these to, wait. So we're going to make them dive first. Alright, so when they appear as blue, actually, when they appear as blue, then they should surface before they go away. So that means that should surface should start out being true, and all of the other ones should be false. Alright, so if should surface equals true, then we start our timer. We say surface timer. No, that's not right. We need another one. We need a should surface timer, or will surface timer. Transition. We'll call this transition time. Transition time is also 5 seconds. Just to keep my sanity. Transition timer. Yep. Okay, so we'll increment transition timer. Transition timer plus equals time dot delta time. God, every time I get delta time, my thing locks up. All right. So transition timer plus equals time dot delta time. If transition timer is greater than or equal to transition time, that means that should surface equals false. Transition timer, transition timer will be reset to 0. Dead surface will be set to true. And we're going to swap out the sprite. So get component. Good God. Get component. We're going to get the sprite renderer. And we're going to set the sprite equal to, let's set the sprite equal to turtle float sprite. Turtle float sprite. Okay. So now that let's see here. So now that he's in surface time, we can say if dead surface equals true, then we can say surface timer, plus equals time.delta time. If surface timer is greater than or equal to surface time, then should dive. Well, first of all, let's say should surface or did surface equals false. Surface timer equals 0. We're going to go back into our transition state, so we're going to get component sprite renderer dot sprite equals turtle dive sprite, and we're going to say should dive equals true, and then here if should dive equals true, then transition timer plus equals time.delta time. If transition timer is greater than or equal to transition time, then we say should dive equals false, did dive equals true, transition timer equals 0, get component sprite renderer color.alpha equals 0, and we can't do that, equals new color damn. All right. You know what? component sprite renderer dot enabled equals false. We just won't render the sprite. And then we're also going to get component collidable object, and we're going to set the isSafe property to false. All right. So did dive equals true. Now another if statement. If did dive equals true, then we want to dive timer plus equals time dot delta time. If dive timer, good God, dive timer is greater than or equal to dive time, right? That means that we've run out of dive time. That means we need to transition. So we're going to say did dive equals false, should surface equals true, or no. Is that right? Should surface, yeah, because we're in transition. Should surface equals true. Transition, no, dive timer equals 0. Get component sprite renderer dot sprite equals turtle dive sprite. Oops, missed something there. And then finally, we're going to re-enable the collidable object. We're going to say isSafe equals true, and we're going to re-enable the sprite renderer. Get component sprite renderer. Shit. Dot enabled equals true. So are we using all of these? Are we using should dive, should surface, did dive, and did surface? Should surface, should dive, did surface. We're using all of them. All of the timers and all of the times, they're all being used. Okay, so let's just go through this. We start off with should surface because they're blue, right? So we're saying, okay, well, here we're going to check. And every frame this updates, we're going to say if should surface equals true, if should surface equals true. We're going to increment the transition timer. Once the transition timer has reached the transition time, we're going to say should dive equals false. Which we don't need to do. It should be more like should surface equals false. Because we just surfaced. So then we reset the transition timer to 0. We say did surface equals true. And then we change our sprite to turtle float sprite. Now we say if did surface equals true, which it's been set here, right? If did surface equals true, we're going to increment this timer until it's greater than or equal to the actual time that we set. And then we say did surface equals false. We set the surface timer back to 0. we change it to the turtle dive sprite, and then we say should dive equals true. Then that gives us 5 seconds until the turtle dives. Then the turtle dives when it reaches the transition timer. It says did dive equals true, should dive equals false. So that this doesn't get called again. So then if did dive equals true, then it's going to spend 5 seconds in its dive state, and then it's going to set should surface back to true and start all over again. If this works on the first try, I'm going to be so excited. So let's give this a try. Let's see what happens. Alright, press play. So 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds. Bam, brown. Let's give it another 5 seconds. Blue. Another 5 seconds, and it should just disappear. Bam, it's gone. 5 seconds, it should be about blue. Blue. Right? And then it's going to go back to brown. Brown. And then it's going to go back to blue. Yes. And then it's going to go back to nothing. Perfect. Alright, now let's see if it actually works with being set to safe and not safe. Alright, right now it's brown. So we can ride it. It's blue. And when it goes to nothing, I should be reset. Yes! Wow, that was amazing! Ha! Alright. I mean, that's it. You know, we could go ahead and finish it up by actually adding the, like actually making it look like this. So we've got 3 small logs. Let's do that real quick, huh? So 3 small logs. So what we need to do is we need to duplicate these right here. And then we move them right up there. And then we duplicate them again. And move them right up there. Now I'm going to check here really quick. See if this is negative 10.5, negative 5.9, negative 10.5, negative 9.5, negative 8.5, negative 7.5, negative 6.5. So negative 6.5 gives us 4 spots. So negative 6.5, so the next one should be negative 2.5. Okay, then we've got 7.5, and then we should have 11.5. And then we should have 15.5. Okay. And we have just one long log. That is the next. So let's take these two and move them out of the way for now. And let's take a long log. I'm just going to move it down into the Y3 position. And it kind of is like at the end, kind of like right here. And then these are kind of like right about. Let's undo that. Select these small logs. And put them right here. And then we're going to take the large log and move it to right about there. And then we're going to take the turtles and we're going to move them to right about here. And then we've got 2 of the small turtles. No, not like that. Those will be on y equals, let's do 4. And let's, to make it easy, we'll go 0 and we'll duplicate it. And we'll put it at 18. That way we know they are the right space apart. We have to do just a little math. Put that on there. And then those will move right. Nope, those also moving left, but they're moving faster. Okay. And they are pretty far apart. So we got the floating turtles. And put that 4. And then we'll put that one on the right. Actually, let's start 0. And then we'll duplicate. And put that at 18. And grab the other. And we'll move it like right here. And the medium logs, those will be at 5. And those move to the right. So we're going to duplicate those 2 logs. Duplicate. And I'm just going to move these to like over here. And these 2 will go like right here. And then let's see. This is supposed to move right. And these move right. Okay, that's how it look. Whoa. Something's not right. Moving right. We're supposed to be moving left. So now it looks like we're okay. Blue. Gone. The only other thing that we could maybe do is start them off differently. So, you know, how the diving turtles, how they start off like sort of in their transitional state. We could start them off as floating turtles, not as floating turtles, but so if we go back into the turtle script, and we set, for instance, we set these to public, right? And then we go over to our two, let's see, blue to all these blue ones. Oops, these are brown. The two blue ones up here. We starting off in a should surface. Now, if we start off in a should dive state, let's see what happens. See, now they disappear while the other ones actually stay. So you can manipulate the states of the turtles differently by making these public and actually making them accessible in the inspector. So that's cool. Not only that, you can also observe now their states, their different states. See, now it's did dive, now it should surface. Now you know what they're doing, and they're swapping the sprites, as you can also tell here. So there you have it. Lilly Pads are turtles. So we should be able to cross now. And whoa, okay, that was just hard. Come on. Yes. And yes. And eventually we'll be able to go here. Wow. That is a safe area. I totally forgot we already marked that as... When did we do that? Okay, so I guess we just need to now basically just make it so that once we land here, we actually win. Or not win, but we get like that little frog trophy. So yeah, I think the game is coming along real well. Anyways, that is that, and all the usual stuff. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give me a thumbs down. Comments go down below as always. And don't forget to check out my Patreon, check out Code Scruffs, check out Donibus Maximus, and subscribe, click the bell for notifications, tell all your friends about the Weekly Coder, because we're awesome, right? See you guys next week.